Hello, everyone. Happy Friday to you all, and I'm so excited to welcome you to yet another promising edition on the Extreme Speed Live as we take on the last trading day of the week. Now let's run through our daily routine. Let's confirm that we are good to go this morning. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, I would really appreciate that you give me a feedback in the comment section by typing in hi. So I would like to see some feedback, please, as regards to the quality of the audio visual. So I will be taking some seconds to read through the chat and see if there are comments. So I'm trying to load up my comment section. Okay, so I see you 7657. Good morning. 463. 1690. Good morning to you and thank you very much. Carrie, hello Carrie, how are you doing today? Good morning to you and glad to have you around with us this morning. 333279 asking about the US oil. Well, we are going to be talking about that in a moment, so I encourage you to stay tuned in so you don't miss out on the insightful ideas we shall be looking at during the session. So I will be taking this as a confirmation that we are good to go this morning. So on this note, I welcome you all once again to yet another promising edition on the Extreme Speed Live. My own name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host where we shall be delving into the financial market to identify potential trading opportunities ahead of the New York session. Well, in anticipation of today's trading session, I have conducted a comprehensive analysis on all of the assets on our watch list using simple parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and chart patterns to gain valuable insights into the historical price movement of these assets. We shall be I'm so excited to share them with you this morning. And in fact, we have very simple setups that we shall be using to guide our trading decisions for today. And in fact, in the last 24-48 hours, we had some sensitive economic data that rolled in from the economies on our watch list. For instance, we had positive figures coming in from the labor sector of the United States, which of course has also bolstered the US dollar. So we are going to be looking at how well the US dollar has been doing so far across the assets on our watch list. Then the Japanese yen, we had some worrisome data from the GDP that came in yesterday, which actually came in below expectations. We're also going to be looking at how the market has reacted to that and how we intend to capitalize on trading opportunities there. So with that being said here, let's dive right into the business. And the first thing we normally do is to check on the economic calendar. And we all know how important this is, as these fundamental factors often manifest on the chart in technical patterns and price movement. By monitoring the economic calendar, we can identify potential correlations between key economic releases and specific technical patterns on the chart, hereby giving us valuable information that will enable us to position ourselves in such a way that we can capitalize on any potential move prior, during, and even after the event. So on the economic calendar, we focus on high impact events from the economies that affect the assets on our watch list. And for this week, we've been looking at the US and the United Kingdom's economy. Now, for today, we For today, Friday, September 8th, we do not have any high impact event to look out for. And in fact, I went a step further to include the medium impact event, which of course we still do not have anything to look out for today. So what we're basically going to be doing today is to rely on our technical skills to manage our existing positions and as well look out for trading opportunities for today. Then there is one more thing I normally emphasize on the last trading day of the week. There is always this psychological peculiarity about last trading days of the weeks, last trading days of the month. There are chances that we could be having some profit taking activities going on ahead of the weekend, as majority who had held on to a position or a direction since the beginning of the week are likely going to be rounding up on their positions, rounding off on their trading activities, and as a result of this could reflect on the chart as a reversal from the prior leading price actions direction. So we are going to be taking all this into consideration too as well. So with that being said here, let's dive right into the chart and look at things from a technical standpoint. So the first asset we are going to be looking at today is going to be the US All Sports, and in fact the US All Sports, we have been buying this asset since the beginning of the week. And in fact, in the last 3-4 days now, the market has been consolidating, but things are still looking very bullish at this point in time. Now, before we go into the details of what our expectations will be looking like today, I would like us to run through how the week started for us in this community and what led into the idea of buying this asset. Now, at the beginning of the week, we had this range where price was initially confined within the 85, hold on a second, between the $85.45 level and of course the $85 area to emphasize the level of indecision at that point in time. And in fact, this lasted about 24-36 hours before we finally saw the breakout of that resistant line at the $85.45 level to give us our first buy position for the week. And since then, we have been considering buying this asset. So we had our first buy position here. Remember, we had it and price moved over 200 pips in our favor before the bearish momentum happened. And also remember that we added more positions at the $85.90, and that moved about 140 pips. And the third position here moved about 80 pips before the sell momentum began. So at the beginning of this week, we were already profitable on the US All Sports. Then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we kept on looking out for buying opportunities, as we mentioned that if price continues to remain above that $85.90 level, we will continue to add in more buy position in the trade. And in fact, we saw on both occasions, we saw price move significantly well. This was about 150 pips move. And this one also, if you are taking advantage of this one yesterday, we can see price is running with about 87 pips at this point in time. So we're still very profitable on the US All Sports so far this week. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity yesterday at the breakout of the $85.90 level, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on this move. So at this point in time, since price has moved significantly well, over 80 pips in profit right now, we do want to be moving our stop losses and secure this current buy position. And the most appropriate area I think that we can move our stop loss to, and of course give enough room for price action, is anywhere above or around the $85.90 level. So let's ensure we have all our stop losses on the buy positions in place right now, as anything could still happen from this point. Now, with a well secured position, what is going to be our plans for today? What are we going to be doing? Are we going to continue buying the US all spot, or are we likely going to be seeing some bearish expectation as a result of profit taking activity ahead of the weekend? So now, for before we can make an informed decision here, I would like us to run through the higher time frame to have an holistic perspective into what is going on in this market right now. And to do that, I would like to refresh our memories as regards to what we saw here at the beginning of the week. Now, at the beginning of the week, we took into consideration the nature of price action since the month of June. And in fact, it is quite clear that price action has been on a strong bullish momentum. However, our center of focus was shifted to that key level at the $84 area. Remember, this was our key level for this week, as we saw price finally broke out of that level during the last week's trading session, and since the beginning of this month, price action had remained above that key level. And one of the things we were anticipating at the beginning of the week was the chances that price could retrace back into the structure to retest it and incite an uptrend continuation, or we might likely be seeing a trend continuation pattern around here to incite that uptrend move, which was exactly what happened. And since then, price had remained on the upside of this current market structure. Now, if we zoom into the current structure here, you will see that since the beginning of the week, price action has been caught within a range exactly between the $87.50 area and, of course, the $85.50 level, to emphasize the level of indecision at this point in time. But things are still looking very bullish, and in fact, I will need price action to break out of that $87.50 level to make us feel very much comfortable in this buy position. So we still hold on to a bullish bias here on the US all spot. Let's keep on looking out for more buying opportunities in this particular market. Now, with the information we have gathered here, let's scale back down into the 4 hours time frame to look out for more opportunities to maximize on this bullish move. I just needed us to see what things are looking like on the 4 hours time frame, so that when we start discussing on the 1 hour time frame, we will be on the same page. So now back into the 1 hour time frame. So I will zoom right into this current structure, and right now we have two buy positions running, one at the $85.90 level, and of course the second one had the breakout of the $86.50 area. Now, as we have secured our current position right now, so I will be looking forward to another breakout of the $87 level to incite more opportunities in this market. So it still remain bullish here on the US all spot. So let's continue to look out for more opportunities to maximize this move. And for considering selling, well, if we are going to be selling the US all spots today or anytime soon, I would like to see price action break down the $85.45 level, something like this, before I can start considering selling. But as long as price action remains above the zone between the $85.90 level and of course the $85.45 area, we shall continue to hold on to a bullish bias in this market. So let's mark out these levels on our chart, and we shall continue to use the zone as a platform for an uptrend continuation. So let's see what happens here going forward. We hold on to a bullish bias and we are not selling unless price takes out that $85.45 level. So these are my views here on the US all spot for today and for the last trading day of the week. If you have any questions as regards to my illustrations and explanations, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move right into the next financial assets. Any questions whatsoever? All right. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So, we shall be moving right into the next financial asset on our watch list. All right, so the next asset on our watch list for today is going to be the USTech 100, popularly known as the NASDAQ. And in fact, we've done pretty well so far this week as we have continued to sell the USTech 100 since Tuesday's trading session. Though at the beginning of the week, we had some buying opportunity, of course, which never lasted long. And since price broke down the 15,525 level, since then we have been considering selling this asset. So for further clarity here, let's run through how the week started for us here in this community. Now, at the beginning of the week, we initially acknowledged our key level on the 1 hour time frame, which was situated exactly along the 15,450. And of course, for you who has been with us for a while now in this community, you know how we use our key levels. When price remains below the key level, of course, we look out for selling opportunities. But if price breaks out of our key levels, we look out for patterns and structures that supports the idea of buying that asset. Now, in addition to that key level was this range where we saw our price was initially confined within before the breakout of that structure happened. And I told you I had a buy position here as at the beginning of the week before we were taken out of that one, hereby expanding that range into the 15,450 and the 15,475. And of course, when price broke down that 15,475, we had our first sell position, which never lasted long, as we had price move about how many pips was there? About 80 pips before the bullish momentum came in, taking us out of that position at a worst case scenario break even. Now, going into the Wednesday's trading session, we acknowledge some more selling opportunities if price will break down the 15,435. And since that moment that price broke down the 15,435, we have been selling this asset as we continued to add more position to our existing trade, had the breakout of levels such as the 15,380 and of course the 15,275, as you will see here. So you can see price has been dropping significantly to the downside, and in fact, if you still have your sell positions running at this point in time, the first position will be running with a minimum of 190 pips in profit. The second position will be running with about 140, giving us a total of 330 pips, while the third position here will be running with about 40 pips. So so far this week we've made over 350 pips in profit on the USTech 100, which is not bad at all. So for those who still have a sell position at this juncture, it is appropriate that we move all stop losses and secure this current sell position, as anything could happen from this point. Now, what we are going to be doing here is to move all stop losses to anywhere above the 15,725 and the 15,330 to secure this position. And remember that we do want to be given enough room for price action to breathe, as price goes to come back to retest some structure before the downtrend continuation happens. So now, with a well secured position as at this juncture, what is going to be our next line of action for today? Now, before we go into the details of what we are going to be looking at here, I would like us to run through the higher time frame to have an holistic perspective into what is really going on in this market. So right here on the daily time frame, we took into consideration the nature of price action since the beginning of this year. And of course, it is quite clear that price action has been on a strong bullish momentum. And to further emphasize the strength of the buyers in this market, we were able to connect the series of higher lows here, giving us an ascending trend line to work with. And of course, you can see how price has consistently and uniformly respected this trend line to push price to the upside. Now, besides this trend line here, we zoomed right into structure here, where we begin to notice selling pressure around the 15,550 level. And one interesting thing about that structure there is the fact that it also shares a confluence with that descending trend line that has been pushing price to the downside since the month of July. And one thing we agreed here on Monday was that if price drops below that trend line, then we are back within the seller's territory for a potential sell-off in this market. Now, in addition to that one, we went further to scale down, I think, into the 4 hours time frame to see what is going on around that area. Now, on the 4 hours time frame, this was where we add our key level to help us guide our trading decision for the week. So we had our key level at the 15,450, and in fact, if we go to as far back as the month of July, you will see how this level had played a major role in determining the direction of price action. Now, if you look at what happened here mid-July, we saw buy pressure around this area. In fact, buy pressure continued right into the month of August before this level was broken at the beginning of the month of August, retested the structure to push price to the downside. And as soon as price action came back into this area again at the beginning of this month, we begin to see selling pressure around that area. Now, with this information we had in mind, we had the key level saying that if price drops below the key level, we shall be looking out for selling opportunity, which is of course what has happened here. Now, going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? Will price action continue with the bearish momentum to push price into that ascending trend line we identified on the daily time frame? And that's about how many pips that is. If price goes that far, we have about 230 pips to catch here if price action continues to the downside. So it's going to be a promising scenario for sellers here if price action will continue to the downside. However, we are not going to ignore the potentials of buyers as well, as we have a trend line to work with. So let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame where we shall be seeing things more clearly here. Now, in order to guide our trading decision for today's trading session, this is what I was able to spot here. The first thing we are going to acknowledge here is the bearish momentum that gripped this market since last week, Friday. And if you look at this closely, we have a descending trend line after connecting the series of lower highs. And this further emphasized the strength of the sellers in this market. And as long as price remains below that descending trend line, you know that we have no business buying this asset. So as long as price remains below the trend line, we shall continue to look out for more selling opportunities to maximize the potential of this bearish move. And in that regard, to sell or add more position to what we have here, I want to see price take out the buy position at the 15,175 level. See what happened here yesterday. We saw how sellers dropped into that zone but found it difficult to break through that area. So we had buy pressure resume around that area. So this is more or less a temporary demand zone at this point in time. And if we want to start considering selling this asset here, I would rather want to see price take out all the buy positions along the 115,175 retest of structure to give me a confirmation of joining a downtrend move. So this is the only condition at this point in time that will make me consider adding more sell position to my existing trade. So remember, I made mention earlier that for those who still have a sell position running, you do want to be securing the position. So let's ensure we secure position and see if the price will continue to drop to the downside. So that is how we're looking out for selling opportunities here. However, in as much as we're looking out for selling opportunities, you know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well, and not negate the potentials the buyers also have in this market. Now, if we take into consideration the buy pressure we observed around the 15,175 level during the New York session yesterday, and the inability of price action to break below that structure since price came into that area, we should know that buyers are likely going to break out some structures at this point. Now, what is it that we want to see on this chart that will make us feel comfortable buying the USTech100? Well, if you look at the structure, we have the 15,275 level, and remember that we have a descending trend line which we spotted earlier. And of course, if price remains below the descending trend line, we cannot consider buying. And the only condition that will make us want to be buying here is for price to take out that trend line, break out of that trend line. And in fact, the breakout of the trend line could signal that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt. And when this happens, we want to begin to consider buying this asset. Now remember that we are not going to be getting too excited here, as we will need some confirmations before we jump into that buy position. And of course, we want to see signs that sellers are finding it difficult to drop back within their territory, which is below the 15,275 and that descending trend line. And this would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure, continued by pressure around this area to give us an opportunity to join an uptrend move. So this is the only condition that will make us want to be buying the USTech100 for today. So we do want to be marking that 15,275 level, as above this level is where we shall be looking out for buying opportunities in this particular market. So let's see how the market will play out in the next couple of hours. Is price going to break out of the 15,275 to incite opportunities to buy, or are we going to be having a breakdown of the 15,175 to give us more opportunities to maximize this bearish move? So our center of focus for today is basically between the 15,275 and the 15,175 area, where depending on where the breakout happens is likely going to be where price will be closing for this week. So you do want to be marking out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to make your independent trading decisions during the New York session. So these are my views here on the USTech100. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next financial asset. All right, so I see your comment, Afri D. How are you doing? You said you are new here. What we do here, we are technical traders and we come here on a daily basis in anticipation of the New York session where we come here to review our current position if we have existing positions running, manage the existing positions while we also strategically position ourselves ahead of the New York sessions, looking out for trading opportunities. So this happens on a daily basis, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time. So I encourage you to stay tuned in if you are a trader, and let's be part of this insightful session. And remember that the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works and eventually be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decision. So once again, you are welcome, Afri D, and I look forward to seeing more of you in this community. So with that being said here, and in the absence of no questions, we shall be diving right in to the next financial asset on our watch list. All right, everyone. So the next financial asset on our watch list for today is the GBP USD. And on the GBP USD, we have quite an interesting position running at this point in time as we have been selling this asset since the beginning of the week. Remember, we had a buy position initially, but price has since then dropped to significant levels, breaking down our key level to incite the idea of holding on to a bearish bias in this particular market. Now, let's run through how the week started for us here in this community. So, at the beginning of this week, we acknowledged a range initially where price was caught within our key level, which was situated at the 1.2600 level and the 1.25850, sorry, and we had the breakout of that range. You know how we do it in this community when we have this kind of flat channel. We want to exercise patience, waiting for either a breakout or breakdown of that range to give us an opportunity to either buy or sell. And of course, we had the breakout of the structure and price moved about, how many pips was that? Moved about 45 pips before this bearish momentum came in, taking us out of that buy position with a modest size of profit. Then we also buttressed that if price at any point in time breaks down and retests the 1.26210, we shall be joining a bearish move. And since that moment, we have been selling the GBP USD. And if you look at the structure closely during our live session yesterday, we also acknowledge that we will be looking out for more opportunities to sell if price action goes on to break down the 1.246, which of course has since not happened since yesterday's trading session, as we saw price action fall into a range, as you will see here. So for those who have been part of this profitable journey so far this week, well done to you. At this moment, you should be running with over 100 pips in profit right now. And for those who still have a sell position running at this juncture, it is important that you want to be moving your stop loss accordingly to secure this current position. And for me, I would be suggesting that anywhere above the 1.2500 area, that psychological level there, we shall be using that area as a yardstick to place our stop losses. And remember that we want to be giving enough room for price action to breed as price goes to come back up to some couple of retests of that structure before the downtrend scenario happens. So with a well secured sell position at this point in time, what is going to be our next line of action? What is it that we want to be seeing on this chart? Are we going to continue buying the GBP USD, continue selling the GBP USD this week, or are we likely going to be seeing some reversal setup considering some profit-taking activity after selling the GBP to buy the US dollar. So are we going to be seeing some profit-taking activity today to incite a reversal setup? Well, let's take a quick look at the higher time frame. Let's see where price is at from an holistic standpoint. So scaling up into the higher time frame, we want to look at what things are looking like on the higher time frame. Now, to refresh our memories on what is going on here, remember, for those who have been with us for a long time on the GBPUSD, I've said this countless of time that price action has been on a strong momentum since the last quarter of last year, as you will see here. However, our center of focus at the beginning of the week was not there, but around that 1.2600 level, a level which has played a major role in determining the direction of price action since the month of May. And you will look at, if you look at the structure closely, you will see how that level in the month of May was serving as a strong selling niche, as you will see here. Then fast forward into the mid-month of June, we saw how price broke out and in fact retested that structure, and since then price action had remained above the 1.2600 area to further emphasize the strength of the buyers around that area. Then one of the things we were looking at the beginning of the week was, will price respect that zone again to incite an uptrend like it has always been doing, or are we going to be seeing a breakdown that will incite a sell-off? Now, in addition to the structure here, we also identified a reversal pattern which was looking more like a head and shoulder pattern. So we have the left shoulder, we have the head, and we saw the transition of the right shoulder here into something like this. And if you look at the structure, it looks like a reversal pattern in the form of an head and shoulder. And you know how we do it in this community. Whenever we cite this kind of reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify the neckline. And coincidentally, the neckline also shares a confluence with that key level at the 1.26. So we needed a breakdown of that key level to confirm that reversal pattern, which was exactly what happened at the beginning of the week. And since then, we have been selling this asset. Now, once again, congratulations to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey. So now the question going into the New York session today is, will price action continue to drop to the downside, or are we likely going to be seeing a move in with the intention of retesting the neckline to incite a downtrend continuation? Well, to answer that question, we shall be zooming into that area around the 1.24750 level on our lower time frame to see what pattern or structure price action is evolving into, and of course this will be helping us to make an well-informed trading decisions for today. Now, scanning down into the 1 hour time frame, this is what I was able to spot here at the beginning of today's trading session. So the first thing I want to acknowledge here is the momentum in the market, which is very bullish at this point. And in fact, after taking into consideration the nature of price action since Wednesday of last week's trading session, you will see that we have a couple of descending trend line which further emphasize the strength of the sellers in this market. And you know how we use our descending trend lines in this community. As long as price remains below the descending trend line, we have no other choice than to continue to look out for selling opportunity. Now, if we look at the structure, let's zoom right in and see what has been going on here in the last 24 hours. Now, you will see here that in the last 48 hours, we have the 1.25 area, which has been a barrier for buyers. Now, despite the buy pressure we have been noticing here in the last 48 hours, as you will see, we had buy pressure, we had higher lows, as you will see, but as soon as price got into that 1.25 level, we saw how sellers negated all buyers' attempt to break out of that structure. And one interesting thing about that level is how it also shares a confluence with the descending trend lines we identified earlier. Now look at what happened during the early hours of today. Price came into that structure and we saw a huge engulfing bearish candle spring down from that zone to further emphasize the strength of the sellers in this market. Now, to further help us guide our decisions, I had this ascending trend line marked out after connecting the series of higher lows. So I was looking forward to the breakdown of that ascending trend line and the 1.249 to capitalize on a downtrend continuation, which is exactly what is happening right now. So we have a sell position running right now. If you are taking advantage of that one, well done to you. But if you had missed out on that one, it's okay. Let's see if the market will present more opportunities to join that trend. And one of the things we're going to be looking out for more opportunities is a potential retest of the structure that was broken, where continued selling pressure around that area will be all we need to join the downtrend scenario. And if price continues to the downside to break down the 1.24600 level, we do want to be adding more position to our existing trade to maximize the potential of this bearish move. So this is how we are going to be selling. And if you look at this closely, you will see how price still remains below that descending trend line to further emphasize the strength of the sellers in this particular market. So let's continue to look out for more opportunities to sell the GBP USD for today. Now, in as much as we're looking out for selling opportunities in this market, remember that we cannot ignore the potentials of buyers in this market. You know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep our options as open as possible so that whenever the opposite direction happens, we are also going to be on standby to maximize that move. Now, if we are going to be considering buying the GBP USD today, what is it that we want to see that will make us feel comfortable joining and negating the idea of selling? Now, to buy the GBP USD today, the only condition and criteria I want to see here is for price to break out of that 1.2500 level. Now, if price breaks out of that level, price would also have broken out of this descending trend line, and you know what that means. When price breaks out of a descending trend line, it will be a sign that the trend line might not be able to negate the bullish attempt anymore, hereby giving us a good signal to start getting ready to join a bullish move. Now, if we are going to be joining a bullish move here, remember that we are not going to be getting too excited at the breakout of the 1.25, neither are we going to be having a buy stop order yet, as we will need some confirmations to happen before we jump into any buy position, as the breakout could still turn out to be a false breakout. So all we want to be doing as soon as we sight the breakout of the 1.25 is to scale down into our lower time frame, the 5, 10 or 15 minutes time frame, to look out for confirmations that sellers are finding it difficult to break back and stay below the 1.25. And this of course would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure. It could be the retest of the 1.249, retest of the 1.25, or any of the descending trend line, where the appearance of buy pressure will be all we need to join an uptrend continuation. So mind you, the only condition that will make us want to start considering buying the GBP USD today is for price action to break out of that 1.2500 area. So you do want to be marking out that level on your chart, and let's see if that is going to be the case. But at this point in time, I'm still thinking price will still continue to the downside, breaking down the 1.246. But if it doesn't and it breaks out of the 1.25, obviously we want to be getting ready to be part of that uptrend continuation. So let's mark these levels out on our chart, as we shall be needing them as a reference point to guide our trading decisions for today's trading session. So that is my view here on the GBPUSD for today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and trust me, I am here and willing to be of help in that regard. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move right into the last financial asset for today's trading session. All right. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So, on that note, we shall be moving right into the next asset on our watch list. All right, so the next financial asset on our watch list for today is the XAUUSD, my favorite, popularly known as the gold spot. And in fact, I can tell you for free that the XAUUSD has been the most profitable asset amongst the assets we've been monitoring since the beginning of this week. Now, we have been selling actually since the beginning of the week, as you will see here. Hold on a second. Let's run through how the week started for us here. Now, despite a strong bullish momentum that started the week at around the $1,939.50 level, we saw a huge barrier for buyers at around the 1,946, negating that move, negating that bullish move to push price to the downside. And in fact, we had a range as a result of this scenario, giving us a consolidation phase between the 1,946 and of course the $1,939.50 area to emphasize the level of indecision at that point in time. Now, you know how we do it in this community. Whenever we have a flat channel like this, we want to wait patiently for either a breakout of that range to give us buying opportunities, or the breakdown of the range to give us selling opportunities. And of course, we saw what happened here, right here. On Monday, we saw price break down that structure, and since that moment, we have been selling the XAUUSD. And remember, we had multiple levels we said we were going to be using to maximize the potential of that move. So we had the 1,935 where we added more positions. We had the 1,928. We had the 1,926. We had 1,924. And of course, we had the $1,922.50 level to maximize this bearish move. So we had a minimum of 600 pips on all 6 positions as at the time we were analyzing this market yesterday. And once again, congratulations to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey. Now, during our live session yesterday, I would like to zoom right into where our focus was during the live session yesterday. So during our live session yesterday, we saw the scenario here where price was ranging between the 1,920 and the 1,916 level to give us an insight into the level of indecision. Then at this point, we begin to consider the potential that buyers could come in to give us a reversal setup that will incite an uptrend scenario. And one of the things that made us to start considering the potentials of buyers here was the fact that within that range, we begin to notice higher lows in this market. And when we connected a series of higher lows, we had a beautiful ascending trend line to guide our trading decisions. And of course, when we have an ascending trend line, we shall continue to look out for patterns and structures that supports the idea of buying that asset. Now, to position ourselves for bullish opportunity here, we had the 1920 level marked out on our chart, and interestingly, that 1920 level shares a beautiful confluence with that descending trend line. And we agreed here that a breakout retest of this trend line would be all we need to join an uptrend move. And we said here that if price breaks out of the ascending trend line, it may be a sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt. Now we saw what happened here yesterday. Price broke out of the 1920, and in fact it spent about 8 hours around that area before that bullish traction began. And in fact, if you are taking advantage of that bullish opportunity at the 1920, and if you still have your buy position running, we saw how price moved over 70 pips before this bearish momentum began. And remember that we also said we are going to be adding more positions at the breakout of the 1922, which of course moved about 40 pips before this bearish momentum began. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on this move. And of course, you know how we do it. When price significantly moves very well in our favor, we do want to be moving our stop losses to secure the current position. And from what we have right now, I will be advising and encouraging you to move all stop losses to the second entry zone around the $1,922.50 level. And mind you, you do want to be giving enough room for price action to breathe. So now with a well-secured position today, what is going to be our next line of action for today's trading session? In fact, I was able to identify a simple setup that we shall be using to guide our trading decisions for today, and that is entirely on a new chart. So I will bring that chart up right now where I have the setup marked out on our 1 hour time frame. Now look at what is going on here. So while I was trying to dissect this current market structure this morning to decipher where price is likely going to be going for the last trading day of this week, I noticed here that we saw multiple rejection of the 1926 level by the sellers. So despite the strong engulfing bullish candles that we saw here during the early hours of today that sprang out of that zone, you will see that as soon as price got into the 1926, we begin to see selling pressure resume around that area, hereby negating the attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure. And this is one of the reasons why I have said here that we do want to be moving our stop losses to secure this position, as the continued selling pressure around the 1926 could incite a downtrend continuation. Remember, this market has been on a strong bearish momentum in the last couple of weeks now, so we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers here despite our buy position at this point. So now that we have a well secured position, how do we intend to capitalize on any trading opportunities today? Now, one of the major parameters that we shall be using to guide our trading decisions today is that ascending trend line we spotted during our live session yesterday, and this is it right here. So you can see what has been going on since Wednesday's trading session. You will see how price has consistently respected that ascending trend line to emphasize some buying attempt here to push price out of this structure. Now this trend line here will be one of our key parameters to guide our trading decision, and interestingly, that trend line also shares a confluence with the $1,922.40 area. Now if this selling pressure observed around the 1926 continues, then we could likely see a breakdown retest of the $1,922.40 level to incite that downtrend continuation. So this is what I'm going to be looking out for to join another wave of bearish move here. So you can see how critical and crucial that level around the $1,922.40 level and that ascending trend line becomes a sweet spot for us to remain patient to see how the market reacts to that level to determine what our next line of action will be. So if price gets into the structure and breaks it down, then this could be a good signal that we want to be joining a downtrend move. However, if price action gets into the zone and begin to find buy pressure around this area, then the chances that price would respect that ascending trend line one more time to incite an uptrend continuation increases. So let's keep this in mind. Mark out this level as we shall be using that as a yardstick to guide our decision if price action ever gets into that zone. Now, if the contrary happens in this case scenario where price does not come back here and instead continues to find higher highs and higher lows, then we shall be right above the 1,926 to capitalize on the uptrend continuation. So mark the 1,926 level out on your chart as we shall be using that as an uptrend continuation pattern to join that uptrend move. So this is what we shall be looking at on the XAUUSD. To do a quick recap of what we talked about here, we have the $1,922.40 level where the breakdown of that structure would have also broken down that ascending trend line, hereby giving us a bearish signal. Then we can look out for selling opportunities below that structure. However, if price continues to find higher highs, then a breakout of the 1,926 will be a good signal for us to join an uptrend continuation. So this is how we are going to be managing our trade on the XAUUSD for today. So you do want to be marking out these levels on your chart as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your independent trading decisions for today. And I should be taking this time to round off as this is the last asset on our watch list for today. But before I round off, I would like to know if there are any questions as regards to all the assets we talked about today. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions or clarifications before we round off for today. So I can see some couple of comments here, especially from 599046888 and 59940 saying that they are new here. In fact, I'm very excited to have you guys around. You're welcome on board, and we are technical traders. It's a community of technical traders where we come together to manage our existing position and as well strategically position ourselves to take advantage of trading opportunities during the New York session. So we do this on a daily basis. And considering the fact that you are a novice here, I would advise and encourage you to try as much as possible to be part of our subsequent editions. It comes in every day, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time. And trust me, the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works and eventually be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decisions. So 4688-0130, you are highly welcome, and I look forward to seeing more of you here in this community. So with that being said, and in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So it has been a wonderful moment with you guys, and in fact throughout the course of the week we've done pretty well. Especially we had a very phenomenal price movement on the XAUUSD, which we of course took advantage of. Then we also had some interesting positions on the USTech100 and also buying positions on the USOILSPOT too as well. So it has been a fair week for us all in this community, and congrats to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey. So for those who are joining us for the first time, I do hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discussed here today. And trust me, the more time, like I said, the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works. So I look forward to seeing you guys again next week, Monday, as we are come back here to take another fresh new look of the financial market. And I look forward to seeing you, of course, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as always. So on this note, I wish you all the best of luck today, and of course, a very happy weekend to you too as well. So do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye bye.